Hey everybody, it's Bolshy here, back with another Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous build video. Today we're going to be looking at the Tempest. The Tempest is a hybrid melee spellcaster character that uses his melee attacks to enhance his spellcasting ability. This build looks like it's going to be a ton of fun to play. It's going to be my first playthrough using the Azada Mythic Path. And you know what? The hardest part for me for coming up with a character to play is actually coming up with a name, because I've got to feel like it's something that I can connect with. So if you guys come up with a name that you think fits this build, leave it in the comments, and that would really help me out. Alright, so let's jump right into the build here. Be forewarned, I am going to make a lot of choices in this build that are driven largely by story or role-playing character concepts. This is going to be a very effective build, but just so you know, there's a lot of little changes you could make to maybe bump up the melee damage or even your casting damage. Anyway, we're going to start off by taking the Eldritch Scion archetype of the Magus class. Alright, just a little overview of what we're going to get from the Eldritch Scion here. The Eldritch Scion has what's called the Eldritch Pool. Now this is a reservoir of mystical arcane energy that we can draw upon to fuel our powers and enhance our weapon. The arcane pool is equal to 1/2 our Magus level plus our charisma mod. So we're going to be really pumping our charisma modifier high. We're going to get a lot of points. We can enhance our weapons with enhancement bonuses like +1, +2. And later at 5th level, we can enhance our weapon with like keen to double our critical threat, flaming, frost, doing elemental damage with our attacks. We're going to get a lot of damage out of this with the mythic ability Elemental Barrage. We also get spell combat, which allows us to do melee attacks with one hand and cast a spell every round in the offhand. We're going to be making a lot of use out of that. And eventually we're going to pick up Spell Strike so that we can deliver melee touch spells through a melee attack. Basically it gives us an extra attack per round that can crit based on our weapon's critical threat range. We're going to be getting some pretty cool powers and abilities through the Magus Arcana. And all in all, it just makes a really strong Gish build who has very efficient action economy, because you can cast a spell and get a full round attack with your melee weapon every round. And we're only going to make that better by taking the Eldritch Knight prestige class later. I'm going to go Aasimar. Now this character is going to personify a lot of the traits that I associate with electricity or lightning. So it's going to be blindingly fast. He's going to be beautiful. He's going to be unpredictable. All right. So I want really high dexterity, high charisma, and we're going to go with the Muse-touched Aasimar heritage. And this also is perfect because we are going to go Azada in this playthrough here. We get bonuses to dexterity and charisma, and we get to cast Glitter Dust once a day. I'm going to be going with the Martial Disciple background for a couple of reasons. Number one, mechanically, I want improved unarmed strike. We are going to be taking crane feats on this guy. Story-wise, this guy kind of starts out as a rank-and-file soldier, or at least that's where his training begins, and he realizes that he has this special power, the Elemental Bloodline. And, rather than go purely towards the sorcerer side, he finds himself somewhere in the middle, which is perfect for the Magus. Kind of halfway between a melee character and a sorcerer. So now, because I want this guy to be really fast and charismatic, I am going to be dumping stats just a little bit. So I'm going to dump my strength. We're not going to be using this too much. Take a point out of intellect, and we're going to go 19 dexterity and a full 20 charisma to start out. Charisma is our casting stat. We also get some cool ways with the Magus Arcane Pool to apply this to our attacks. And dexterity, eventually we're going to be using that for attack and damage. Now, because of this, we only get one skill, and I'm going to be going into mobility. Our first feat is going to be Weapon Finesse. So right off the bat, we're going to be using our dexterity modifier for attack instead of strength when we use a light weapon. And we're going to be using rapiers primarily. My bloodline here, and this is one of those places where this particular build can be built a lot of different ways. For my first playthrough, I think I'm going to be going with Elemental Bloodline Air. The Elemental Air bloodline gives us a lot of really useful abilities. First of all, the Bloodline Arcana allows us, it doesn't say here, but it allows us to change any damage, any elemental damage we do into electricity. And that's really powerful when you combine it with the mythic ability Ascendant Element Electricity, because what that does is it negates any immunities or resistances that your target has, demons are usually, I think, by default, all demons are immune to electricity. So we really, really need that mythic ability, and we're going to pick it up really quick in the game. But once you have it, you can change everything into electricity, and then your attacks basically never miss. We also get some pretty cool bonus spells. We get electric version of Burning Hands, electric version of Scorching Ray, protection from energy. At level 9, we get Elemental Blast, which is a spell-like ability that we can cast. It does pretty good damage. It also gives your target vulnerability to electricity. So very powerful in our hands. We're going to have some really powerful electricity blasting spells later in the game. And late game, we're going to be taking a mythic ability to grab this level 20 ability here so that we get immunity to sneak attacks, critical hits, and electrical damage. And our first two spells are going to be Expeditious Retreat. And again, this is kind of like flavor choices. If you wanted to go pure power gaming, I would probably go Shield and Shocking Grasp. But I'm going to go with Expeditious Retreat and Shocking Grasp. I want them to be quick. I want that to be something that defines him. And our deity is going to be Ghost Ray. At second level, we're going to take another level of Eldritch Sound. For skills, I get another skill here. I think I'm going to go with Mobility and Persuasion for this guy. And again, these are largely story RP-driven choices. Now, at first level, I didn't mention this, we do get Spell Combat. That allows us to cast a spell in one hand and make attacks with the other hand. Kind of like dual wielding, but one hand is a spell. And Spell Strike allows us to deliver melee touch spell attacks through our weapon. So Shocking Grasp, for example. We can cast that, deliver it with an attack, which gives us a bonus attack, and then also make our other attacks. So this does give us, if you're spamming a melee touch spell attack, this will give you an extra attack per round. We're going to be using that in the early game, but later we're just going to be blasting with our offhand with regular spells. Third level, our weapon focus here. Now I am going to be going rapiers pretty much the entire game. There's a lot of good rapiers. There's a few that really complement this class, so I know that this is going to be a good choice here. I'm going to take Arcane Accuracy. This is going to allow us to spend 1 point from our Arcane pool to get a bonus equal to our Charisma bonus on attack rolls. So we're going to have really high Charisma, and we're going to get a lot of use out of that. Now our next spell, we did get Burning Hands, which does electricity damage through our Bloodline. So what I'm going to pick at this point is Reduce Person. And for us, strength and weapon damage really don't count for much at all. We're going to be dealing the majority of our damage through spell damage. So this is actually really great. It gives us a +1 to attack rolls, gives us some bonus to dexterity, and it gives us a bonus to AC. So all good things for us. At level 4, we're going to bump up. Now, here's where you can make your own choice. If you want to get more out of your melee attacks, bump up your dexterity. If you want to be a full-on blaster, go Charisma. And that's what I'm going to do here. Towards the end of the game, he's really going to be pumping out a lot of damage with his spells. So I want to make sure that those saving throws are as high as possible. And bumping up your Charisma is going to do that for us. All right. Mirror Image and Frigid Touch for our second level spells. Mirror Image is a great defensive buff. Frigid Touch is actually really good. It gives a touch attack, touch attack, that deals 46 cold damage. And it causes the target to be staggered for 1 round. Now, if it crits, and we have a really high crit weapon, that staggered is going to be for a whole minute. So that's going to do a lot of work for us. At level 5, another level of Eldritch Sound. Get our mobility up. Our feet is going to be Fencing Grace, now that we have weapon focus, which is a prereq for this. And now we're adding our dexterity instead of our strength. So this is actually a pretty big increase. We went from getting a -2 penalty on our damage rolls to having a +4 or even higher than that bonus if you're buffed. And we also get a bonus Magus feat here. I'm going to go with Spell Penetration. And that might seem like a strange choice, but it really doesn't take long in the game before you're facing enemies that have spell resistance all the time. And you really want to make these caster level checks. So this is a big part of that. And like I said, the goal of this build is really to eventually deal a lot of spell damage. I'm going to take Blur as my next spell. That gives us a 20% miss chance. We also got Scorching Ray from our Bloodline free spell. So this is going to be our ranged blasting spell. Now at this point, level 5, we also get some nice new enchants to toss on our weapon. We can enchant our weapon for 1 point of our arcane pool, which I guess I didn't really talk about. But I'll go back and edit to talk about that. So you can use your arcane pool to enchant your weapon, and that can give you an enhancement bonus of, right now at level 5, +2. Now we can trade some of that bonus to add these properties to our weapon. So we can add Keen, which is basically like improved critical. It doubles the critical threat range of your weapon. And also we can add elemental damage. Now we're going to be making a lot of use out of both of these as we play through. We're actually not even going to be taking improved critical. We're going to be relying on weapon enchants. At level 6, get our skills out of the way. We get another Magus Arcana. Now this is kind of not even up for debate. Enduring Blade is kind of mandatory. It takes your enchant weapon ability, which would normally just be 1 minute per cast, and now it's going to be 1 minute per level. So right now we're getting 6 minutes of enchanted weapon. And this is going to be a major source of our damage when we take the mythic ability Elemental Barrage later. We also want this for our Keen enchant because we really want to crit as well. At this point, I think I'm going to go with... actually, I'm going to do kind of a cheeky move here. I'm going to take Molten Orb. And if you saw the Demon Knight video, I'm going to kind of do the same trick with this build. So we'll see how that works out. There's a item in the game that allows you to bump up your spell damage when you're hit with an attack that has the same elemental type. Okay, so if you get hit with a fire attack, your next attack is going to do +2 damage, +2 damage per die of fire damage. Well, since we're Elemental Bloodline Air, we can change all of our damage to electricity, so this Molten Orb can be an electric orb, and it can boost our elemental electric damage. So we're going to play with that. We got the other spells first, though. That's kind of a gimmick. It's fun, but there were other spells that we wanted first. At level 7, we're going to take Greater Spell Penetration. This gives us another +2 to our caster level checks, and at this point, we really shouldn't be missing spell resistance checks anymore, especially when we take the mythic feat that goes along with this. We get another first level spell. I'm going to go with Magic Missile. We get our 3rd level spells. I'm going to go with Displacement. And of course, we're lightning based. We got to go Lightning Bolt. And I know a lot of people are looking at this like, you're building towards like full-on lightning when demons are completely immune to lightning. Yeah, but we're also going to be taking a mythic ability that's going to completely negate all resistances and immunities to lightning damage or electricity damage. So this is actually going to be a solid choice. Also, there's a really easily available item that will give us Fireball to our spell list as well. So I'm not going to get that. At level 8, now that we can cast 3rd level spells, we're going to be jumping into the Prestige class, the Eldritch Knight. I love the Eldritch Knight. It's one of my favorite Prestige classes. We get some nice bonus combat feats. We get to count our Eldritch Knight levels as fighter levels for the purpose of getting feats, and we are going to pick up a really nice bonus feat that way. And then, this is really the kicker, at the 10th level of Eldritch Knight, we get to cast a spell as a swift action whenever we crit with our weapon. Alright, so we're going to be wielding a rapier in one hand that has about a 30% crit chance. And every time we crit with that thing, we get to cast an instant cast spell, in addition to the spells that we already get to cast with our offhand. So this really allows us to pump out a lot of spells per round. And then we're going to be taking some Azada mythic abilities that boost this even higher. It's a lot of fun. Skills out of the way. Our bonus combat feat is going to be Outflank at this point. Help our team out a little bit, give us some extra bonus to hit when we're flanking. At level 9, we're going to be taking another level of Eldritch Knight. We're going to take this all the way up to level 10, get that capstone as soon as possible, and we're going to take Dodge. So now we're going to get our defensive feats. We have our spell penetration, we've got our dexterity to damage. Our goal right now is to get defensive feats online. You get to choose which class your Eldritch Knight levels boost in terms of spell casting. So, of course, we're going Eldritch Scion. And here I'm going to pick Force Punch, which is another melee touch attack spell. So I can get an extra attack per round if I want to cast this. Deliver it through Spell Strike. Next level, Eldritch Knight. Get some more third level spells. At this point, I might go with Haste. I'm kind of curious how the interaction between Greater Magic Weapon and Eldritch Scion, Eldritch Pool item enhancement for the weapon works. I'm not entirely sure. This might be worth it to take as well. I'm going to go Haste for sure. Haste is always useful. Ability, our feat is going to be Crane Style. That's why we took Dodge, that's why we took Martial Disciple background. And what this does is it gives us a -2 penalty to attack while fighting defensively. It's usually -4, I believe. And we also get an additional +1 to our dodge bonus. So with our ranks and mobility, that's going to be -2 to hit, +4 to AC while fighting defensively. We're going to use this all the time. I think at this point in the game, at level 11, Glitter Dust has probably run its course. So I might go with self buff or invisibility. Up to you. At level 4, I'm going to go with Dragon's Breath and Dimension Door. And there might be, Greater Invisibility is a great choice too, but this is really just for, the character. I want him to be able to bounce around the battlefield, and also Dragon's Breath just because it's a cool spell. And it's a blasting spell. At level 12, boost up our Charisma again. Skills out of the way. We get a bonus combat feat. We're going to take Crane Wing. Get some more first level spells. At this point, I don't think there's anything here we really need. Vanish. Take Greater Invisibility now. I think at this point in the game we'll have the item that gives us extra fire spells, so we don't really need to pick up Control Fireball. That's nice to have sometimes too. More levels of Eldritch Knight, and now we're going to finish out our Crane suite of feats with Crane Riposte. I forgot to mention Crane Wing. Crane Wing gives us an additional, I must have got that as a bonus feat, gives us an additional +4 dodge bonus to AC when we're fighting defensively, which is up the majority of the time. If something comes close to hitting you, you miss it, you lose the AC for a round. Crane Riposte reduces the penalty for fighting defensively by another 1, so now we're only taking a -1 penalty to attack rolls for fighting defensively, and we get an attack of opportunity every time our Crane Wing is triggered. At this point, I might take Stone Skin. We already have damage, we don't need Shout. We'll get this spell from a ring. I think I'll go Stone Skin. More skills. Getting close to getting the good stuff here. I'll go with Dispel Magic here. Our first 5th level spell, I'm going to go with Cone of Cold. I'm prioritizing the blasting spells. I guess we could go Fire Snake too. Vampiric Shadow Shield is kind of cool. We're not going to be casting anything that requires high saving throws, so I'm going to steer clear of Polymorph. You really don't get a whole lot of stuff here. Not a lot of choices, so I guess I'll just take the 2 blasting spells. Kind of redundant though. At level 15, our 8th level of Eldritch Knight, and we are going to take Spell Focus Evocation. All of our blasting spells are Evocation, and we want to start investing to make those saving throws harder for enemies to make. And at this point I'll probably take Glitter Dust. Maybe Effortless Armor. Reduce your armor check penalty. We will be wearing some armor here. Take Vampiric Shadow Shield. Level 16, this is our last skill up or ability score increase into Charisma. Get our feats out of the way. Our bonus combat feat, I'm going to take Greater Weapon Focus. 5th level spells. I don't know, maybe you want to take Beast Shape. Not a lot of choices. And finally, at level 17, this is perfect. We get our 10th level of Eldritch Knight. So our 10th level gives us that really cool ability, Spell Critical. So every time we crit with our weapon, we get an instant cast, quickened spell. And not only that, but we also hit our level 16 in our Eldritch Scion casting. So we pick up 6th level spells. So this is a massive, massive power jump. And at this point, we're going to take Greater Spell Focus Evocation, improve our saving throws a little bit more. Take Controlled Fireball. It's up to you at this point. Maybe shout for the stun. Definitely Chain Lightning. This build is entirely centered around Chain Lightning in the late game. One of the really cool abilities we're going to pick up from the Azada is something called Zippy Magic. And what that does is when you cast a single target spell, the spell is duplicated. So if you cast a Scorching Ray, it's going to cast 2 Scorching Rays at 2 different targets. And Chain Lightning is coded as a single target spell. So it bounces off and hits, it can hit up to 20 different people. But when you cast this, it's targeted at one person. It's going to fly around the room and just do crazy damage. You'll see in the demonstrations that it's insane. We're also going to pick up Sirocco. Chain Lightning is so good with Zippy Magic, where I can't imagine us casting anything else. So you're kind of down at 6th level. You got your stuff. And then our last 3 levels are just going to be Eldritch Scion. So pretty straightforward build. 1 class, 1 prestige class, and that's it. Oh, get Vampiric Touch. What am I thinking? This is another touch spell that gives you some temporary health when you hit. I probably would have picked that sooner, actually. There's a rapier that specifically buffs this spell as well. Maybe we might want to blast with some Hellfire Rays later, so I'll put that on there. But I'm pretty sure we get that from the ring, so I'll put Transformation ahead of that in priority. Transformation is an amazing buff when you just want to forget about casting and just do pure damage with melee attacks. Not too great for us because we're not built for that. But, if you run out of spells in your last spell, you could pop Transformation and do some really solid melee damage. Level 19. We are going to take Critical Focus. Now, like I said, we're going to be getting our critical threat increase from the Keen enchant from our Arcane pool, our Eldritch pool. So we're not taking Improved Critical. We're going to take Critical Focus. And this gives us an additional +4 to our critical confirmation rolls, which is useful for this build. We actually really want to crit because we want to get those instant cast spells. So synergizes pretty well. Although this is one of those choices that could definitely be swapped out. And at 9th level, we're going to go with Dimension Strike. For 2 points from your Arcane pool, you can resolve all your melee attacks as touch attacks. So basically you attack touch AC. And I can say from experience that some of the hardest enemies in the game have super high AC, but really low touch AC. So you can dispatch those enemies pretty quickly with that ability. Level 6, hopefully somebody in your party has True Seeing. If not, you definitely want to pick that up. Disintegrate could be good. It's another single target spell that will get duplicated by Zippy Magic. I really think Chain Lightning kind of beats that out though. And we also pick up Elemental Blast. So now we can cast that on somebody. And actually this is a AoE. So you blast them with this and then drop a Chain Lightning on top of it and they take a 1.5 times damage. So that's pretty solid actually. And our last level is going to be 10th level Eldritch Scion. We're going to boost our dexterity. We don't get anything from boosting our charisma there. Good spells. Now, these spells here, I think this is glitched actually. If you look at the Eldritch Scion, at level 19, I believe, yeah, you get greater spell access, which allows you to pick 6 spells of any level from the wizard spell list. The wizard spell list has pretty much everything. So mega spells, you probably notice there's kind of limited. I think this is glitched because it looks like the Eldritch Knight levels are increasing our Eldritch Scion abilities, or at least with this in mind. So I don't know if that's intended or not. but I'm going to go with it. Spells. And there's a lot of spells that I would like to get here. Let's see here. I definitely want to get things like Sense Vitals. I want to get Burning Arc because it's good for the same reason that Chain Lightning is. It's targeting one person and then it bounces off. So with Zippy Magic, you get a lot of use out of that. I don't think this will actually make it through though. So, all right, so let's take a look at our Mythic Path here. Now, for our first ascension, we're going to take Instrument of Freedom. This really just fits the build concept more than anything, but it also gives us some pretty nice buffs. At first level, we can cast this on ourselves to get extra holy damage and bypass damage reduction on each hit, so that's pretty solid. And then we get an additional +4 bonus to saving throws against mind affecting effects and some electricity resist. This doesn't really do much for us. We're going to get a lot of electricity resistance and later on immunity through abilities. Our first mythic ability is going to be Elemental Barrage. And what this does is when you deal energy damage, so fire, cold, shock, sonic, acid, you mark your target with a mark. You apply an elemental mark. If in the next 3 rounds you deal energy damage of a different source, a different type of energy, you do additional 1d6 damage per mythic rank. And this adds up really fast. So primarily we're going to be dealing electricity damage due to our bloodline and our choice of spells, but also we're going to be enchanting our weapon to do cold, fire, and maybe acid damage. So each one of those things is going to proc this ability, and it's going to be a significant source of our damage, especially in the early game, before we get our really great blasting spells. At Mythic Rank 2, we're going to take extra mythic ability, Ascendant Element, Electricity. And what this allows us to do is anytime we deal electricity damage, we're able to bypass resistance and immunities. And since our Bloodline Arcana for the Elemental Bloodline allows us to change any energy damage to electricity, basically we can bypass all resistance and immunities to energy damage, which we do a significant amount of. So this combined with our Bloodline Arcana really makes us a potent spellcaster at this point. At Mythic Rank 3, we get to choose our path. Of course, we're going to go Azada here. We do pick up a Animal Companion. Not going to give too many spoilers on that, but we do get one. At level 3, we're going to take Abundant Casting. This is going to give us 4 more casts per day of our first, second, and third level spells. Now, I'm not going to point out, we get some spells here. These are your standard spells, but we also get some really great Azada spells. So we're not really ever going to be using the spells you choose here. But I will take Bless and Unbreakable Heart. At Mythic Rank 4, we're going to choose Spell Penetration as our mythic feat. Now, we've already taken Spell Penetration and Greater Spell Penetration, the regular feats. This is going to allow us to add our full mythic rank to caster level checks to overcome spell resistance. And there's a lot of enemies with really high spell resistance in the game at this point. So this is a great choice. It might not look fun because you don't see any damage being added to your attacks, but spell resistance is a really big obstacle to casters in this game, and you need to invest in overcoming it. We also get to choose at Mythic Rank 4 our first superpower, and this is really what the build is designed around. It's Zippy Magic. This allows us to duplicate any spell that normally only targets one creature. So if it's a buff, you'll cast the buff on yourself and somebody else. If it is a spell that does damage, it's going to clone that spell to attack 2 people. Now combine this with Chain Lightning, which is coded to be a single target spell, and you get 2 Chain Lightnings hitting for, crazy damage, which we'll see in the demo. Also, your damaging spells do an additional 2d6 plus your mythic rank, so that doesn't hurt either. At Mythic Rank 4, we also start picking up our unique Azada spells. So for a second level spell, we get things like Ode to Miraculous Magic, increases our whole party's chance to overcome spell resistance by +4. We get an increase to will saving throws, like when we're casting a spell that involves a will saving throw, the DC is increased by 2. Rejuvenating Poem reduces or removes fatigue and exhausted from all party members. And those are really the 2 great spells at level 2. And now that we're in Eldritch Knight, we can cast these as instant casts to support our party as well. At Mythic rank 5, our Mythic ability is going to be improved Abundant Casting. We're getting pretty close to hitting 16 or 17, picking up our 6th level spells, and we really want to have this online so we can cast more of them per day. Get some more spells. I'm going to pick up Good Hope and Prayer. Good Hope is nice to have around until you pick up Heroic Invocation. Hopefully you have that in your party. If not, you can use this buff all game. And we get some great Azada spells as well. We get Optimistic Smile, which removes all fear, confusion, compulsion, shake, and frightened effects from your party members and gives them immunity to fear for a whole combat. And we also get immunity to energy damage of one type with Rainbow Dome. At Mythic rank 6, our feat is going to be Weapon Focus. Now we took regular Weapon Focus and we also took Greater Weapon Focus, and this is going to double the benefit of both of those, which basically gives us from this one feat another +2 to hit, which is really solid. Our superpower is going to be Favorable Magic. Now, whenever an enemy makes a saving throw against one of our spells, they have to roll twice and take the worst result. So basically, if you've played D&D 5e, this is disadvantage for all enemy saving throws. And whenever we make a concentration check or a check to overcome spell resistance, we get advantage. So we roll twice and take the better result. Also, if an enemy makes the saving throw against one of our damaging spells, and it would normally cut the damage in half, it only reduces it by 25%. And that's fantastic because all of our blasting spells are save for half damage spells. So basically you're saving for 75% damage. We're always going to do 75% damage. Get some spells, some 3rd level spells. We also pick up 4th level Azada spells, which are pretty solid. Chaotic Healing heals a party member and also gives them a random buff from one of our spells. Could be with things like removing fatigue, exhaustion, things like that. We get a nice little self buff that gives us some damage reduction and also makes people that attack us take damage. At Mythic rank 7, our Mythic ability is going to be Thundering Blows. Whenever you miss with this Mythic ability, once per round, when you miss, you deal 2d6 plus an additional 1d6 per 2 Mythic rank sonic damage to all enemies in a 10-foot radius. So basically everybody in melee range. Now the great thing about this is it's sonic damage, and it should mark our targets with that elemental barrage mark that we took at 1st Mythic rank. So this gives us another source of proccing that elemental barrage. And this should be a great source. You know, miss once with your melee attack to get the elemental barrage, pop off a chain lightning to hit everybody in melee for another elemental barrage, plus chain lightning damage. We're really pumping out these solid AoE damage here. I'm not entirely sure that this works yet, but it does say sonic damage, and it absolutely should work because it says specifically energy damage, which includes sonic. So hopefully that works. If it doesn't work on release, then I might choose something else. More spells. Again, these choices don't really matter at all because the Azada spells are just so much better in my opinion. And we get things like Friendly Hug. Friendly Hug removes all negative levels from the target, gives them immunity to energy drain, and mind-affecting spells. So things like Charm, things like Confusion, things like, I believe Fear falls in this category. All of those things that would normally take a massive spell like Holy Aura to negate, we're getting a minute per level buff. So this is a fantastic buff to cast on your party. You also get Second Breath, which restores all companions' abilities to the maximum amount. Abilities are things that, basically things I believe that aren't in your spell book. So anything that's in that middle menu gets restored with this. So I believe it's things like domain abilities for clerics, rage, class abilities like that. So this is a really strong spell as well. At Mythic rank 8, our Mythic feat is going to be Spell Focus. We took regular Spell Focus and Greater Spell Focus, so we get to double those effects as well. We've got some pretty decent saving throws for our evocation spells right now. And we get 6th level spells. Our 6th level spells of note, we've got Songs of Steel. This is a fantastic round for level buff when something really needs to die. You get an additional 2d6 damage plus a Azada caster level, which at this point is 16 on each weapon attack. You get a +2 bonus to caster level checks, you get a +2 bonus to concentration, and the DC of all your spells is increased by 2. So can't really ask for more in a single buff. We also get Joy of Life. This restores all spells in your spellbook and your companion spellbook up to 5th level. So we're getting close to the point where we can just cast spells non-stop and not have to worry about it. Because when we exhaust all of our Eldritch Scion spells, we should be able to cast this and restore them all, and without affecting our Azada spellbook though. So our Azada spellbook is just our Mythic spellbook. Currently, this doesn't work at all, so I can't really test to be certain that that's what it does, but I'm pretty sure that that is the effect. At Mythic rank 9, we are going to take Bloodline Ascendance, Elemental Body. This is a really great ability. If this were a tank, I would have taken this a lot sooner, but immunity to sneak attack, critical hits, and electricity damage is good at any time of the game. But I did focus on getting our damage up first. And we get our 7th level spells. And our 7th level spells include Heroes Never Surrender. This is a spell you can cast that will restore all your spells and abilities, all spells up to level 7. So for an Eldritch Scion who only casts up to 6th level spells, this will restore our entire spellbook. And I believe we get to cast this spell at Mythic rank 10 3 times a day. So with this spell, we can triple our spells per day. And without even considering that we have a 6th level spell that can do up to 5th level spells. So I'm pretty sure that this is going to be all of our level 7 casts, although Unbreakable Bond is a really strong buff as well. This is a buff for your whole party, gives them immunity to mind affecting, charm, fear, compulsion, emotion, shaken, confusion effects. They get a +3 bonus on all saving throws and untyped damage reduction 5, which stacks with other damage reduction. So I'd probably cast this once a day, and then this for every other spell cast. And finally, at Mythic rank 10, we're going to take extra Mythic ability, and I'm going to go with 2nd Bloodline, Bronze Draconic Bloodline, just to get an additional +1 damage per die rolled of electricity damage. You might have bumped this up instead of the Elemental Body, or maybe even Thundering Blows if you really wanted that blasting damage on your spells. But that's a good way to increase our damage just a little bit there. We're also running out of good options. So, and that about does it. Our extra Bloodline does give us some bonus spells to our Scion spellbook, but aside from that, that's pretty much it. Alright, so let's take a look at gear. Now, one of the reasons I chose electricity damage for this guy is because, well, first of all, the Chain Lightning spam, but also there's a ton of gear in this game that gives us a lot of really cool buffs and unique abilities with electricity damage. So first of all, we've got this Helm of Static Discharge. Gives us some bonus to combat maneuver defense. It also charges our weapon attacks with 2d6 electricity damage whenever we take electricity damage, even if it's prevented by resistance or immunity. Cloak of Carnage gives us +2 DC for evocation saving throws. Red Salamander is a ring that adds spells to your spell list if you cast spontaneously, which we do. The Eldritch Scion is a spontaneous caster, so we get to add all of these really great spells for free to our spellbook. And with our Elemental Bloodline Arcana, we can change them to electricity damage. So we can't cast Firestorm or Fiery Body because we don't have 7th and 9th level spells, but we get Fireball, Controlled Fireball, Fire Snake, and Hellfire Ray. Great blasting spells. And a Protection +5. This is a really cool, unique item. Similar to the Red Salamander, it adds a bunch of spells to our spellbook. Jolting Portent, we can't cast that because it's level 7. Call Lightning, Lightning Bolt, Chains of Light, Call Lightning Storm, Chain Lightning Storm Bolts. Also, whenever we are attacked, the enemy takes 1d6 electric damage, which should also proc our Elemental Barrage. And if you want, you can turn the bracers on by clicking a little toggle, and this would allow you to change all of your energy damage to electrical. So that's why I was saying that I chose Elemental Bloodline as kind of a role-playing choice. You could have gone with Draconic and then picked these up in Chapter 3 and kind of had the same effect of being able to convert all of your energy damage into electrical. But in any case, this is a great item for this build. Random neck, story neck gives us +2 to charisma. This is one of the reasons why we are not taking a dip in monk and getting like crazy high AC, because there's some really cool armors that you can put on. Like this one here, it gives you an additional +1 damage per die on your blasting spells. This is another really cool artifact armor here. So this armor has a bunch of really cool abilities that complement this build really well. First of all, you do get some penalties. It's kind of a proper artifact that gives you some really great abilities, but also some penalties. So -2 penalty to attack and constitution. However, you get electricity resistance 30. If you take electrical damage, the armor becomes infused, and for the next round, your attacks deal an additional 1d12 electric damage, and any spells with the electric descriptor become quickened. So basically you can instant cast electricity spells while also doing additional electricity damage per attack with your melee weapons. So this really synergizes with everything that we've built into this build. The elemental barrage, the electricity damage, all of our spells are electric spells. So you can basically cast any spell quickened once you take a little bit of electricity damage. Now combine that with this shirt that gives you an additional +2 damage per die whenever you suffer electricity damage. And you've got a really cool combination between these three items. Extra damage on attack, extra damage on attack, extra damage on spells, and you can instant cast spells whenever you take electricity damage. And by the way, one of our summons actually spams a lightning bolt. So we can just stand in the way, get tagged by a weak little lightning bolt, and start to really melt some faces with this stuff. Unfortunately, not everything works just yet. So this item, neither of these items work. Hopefully they get these working on release, because that'll be a really cool, unique way to play the game. Continuing on, we got a Constitution belt, some random gloves, and some really great dexterity boots here. This is another artifact item from the storyteller. Our weapon is a +5 keen rapier. That's good for us so that we don't need to spend our arcane points on making it keen. We get an additional +2 to attack and damage on attacks of opportunity. If we kill something with an attack of opportunity, we get another attack, an additional attack on the next round. That would be great for us to get more chances to crit. You can see we have a really high crit chance. Not a bad attack roll. This is entirely self-buffed. I don't have any party buffs, so this could be pushed a lot higher. Same thing with armor class. We can definitely get our armor class up into the 50s, I would say. We're not fighting defensively either, so that's another 8 AC on top of this. All right, so here we go. We're going to take a look at this build in action. The first thing I'm going to do is actually drop an elemental blast. I know there's some guys right here, and this is going to do some damage, but also make them vulnerable to electricity. So I'm going to charge in here, make sure I get my attacks and my spells off. It's kind of glitchy with spell combat. You got to make sure you're close first, and then there goes my chain lightning, and you can see here, if I scroll all the way up, it gets duplicated, and that one cast of chain lightning did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 instances of damage there. So pretty sweet. And I should still have some attacks that I can do here. There they go. There they go. Popping off. That right there is the elemental barrage damage. And, you know, obviously this is tuned up to Mythic rank 10, where this is 10d6, you know, times 2 or 3 on every hit. So it's a little excessive, but it gives you an idea of just how much damage this thing pumps out. And I got a crit, so looky looky, I get to pop off another instant cast chain lightning. I probably should have done Hellfire Bolt there because it was just one guy. But that's it. That's the build. Cast a spell, hope for crits, cast another spell, things get duplicated and chained all around the room. It's really a lot of fun. And if you want to be a full-on spell casting damage dealer, this is definitely a build to try out.
All right, that's the build. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.